Hi everyone, welcome to the world of sociology. Again we are back into the theoretical domain of sociology, our mother of all social sciences. In the last session we were discussing about Emile Durkheim, one of the greatest founding fathers of sociology, and we were dealing with the Durkheimian conception of sociological theory and the major perspectives of Emile Durkheim. And in the last class we have covered the Durkheimian notion of social solidarity, and we started moving into the most important, the most crucial Durkheimian theory, and that is nothing other than suicide. Many of my students used to ask me, why a theory on suicide, especially by a classical sociologist, by one of the founding fathers of sociology like Emile Durkheim? My answer was very simple, that Durkheim was not only the founding father of sociology, but he was also the first systematic sociologist who attempted to develop a theory that deals with something known as social pathology. Many of you are surprised to hear this word, social pathology. What is pathology basically? Pathology refers to a condition or a state of affairs when the society faces continuous and incessant disorganization and crime. Sociology as an academic discipline is greatly interested in what is known as social pathology, and Durkheim can be considered as the first scientific sociologist who attempted to get to know and to develop a theoretical foundation about suicide, which itself is an indication, a signal and a clear-cut evidence of social pathology. Why suicide? Durkheim was a Frenchman, and he was living at a time when Europe was facing one of the turbulent years of its existence. Europe was going through a phase when it was seriously exploding itself with the waves of modernization, and it was undergoing a rapid transformation in different domains, in the domain of art, in the domain of literature, in the domain of science and technology, and above all, Europe has heralded itself into a phase of an urban Europe and of a modern Europe. Modern in the true sense of the term. When modernity started increasing, of course Durkheim was deeply moved by a state of affair or state of condition known as anomie. Many of my students are familiar with this term, with this name anomie, because this name was expanded by different sociologists, which rightly included people like Robert K. Merton, but the beginning was of course much before, and it was from Emile Durkheim. Anomie can be considered as a state of affairs when there is a relative disorganization, a relative normlessness, a state of lawlessness in the society, where the society would be moving through a condition of least organization. And Durkheim was deeply moved, was deeply influenced by the enormous number of suicides that were committed in the European society, especially by the French people. And he realized that there would be some causative factors, some social factors that would be eventually responsible for this high degree or high rates of suicide, and Durkheim wanted to scientifically study, I repeat, to scientifically study the phenomenon of suicide, and which ultimately led to his masterstroke, his groundbreaking theoretical contribution, that is the Durkheimian conception, the Durkheimian theory of suicide. What is basically suicide, and why does an individual who has different faculties, different capacities, potentialities commit suicide? Durkheim linked this concept of suicide, which itself is a pathological phenomenon, to that of the connection, to that of the relationship that an individual enjoys with his society. The way an individual is integrated with the society. I repeat, this is an important point. The way an individual is connected, the way an individual is integrated with the society. And this amount of integration may be higher, may be lower. That would be responsible in one way or other way for an individual, that compels an individual, that acts as a causative factor that prompts an individual to commit suicide. Durkheim realized that the relationship between society, which itself is a collection, an atomized collection of different individuals, and with every single unit, that is every single individual who lives in a society, has to be explored, has to be analyzed, has to be studied from the point of view of sociology so as to understand the phenomenon of suicide better. Durkheim used to define suicide as a phenomenon or a sociological process in which an individual decides to end his life at a particular point of time, maybe due to the compulsion of a multitude of factors. Durkheim focused his attention purely on the social factors, and before coming to his theoretical perception, Durkheim disproved, I repeat, he rejected, disproved and completely debilitated all existing theoretical conceptions on suicide. He completely disproved those theories that connected climate, that connected geography, that connected the hereditary or the biological inherited capabilities of an individual as responsible for suicide, and Durkheim gave a sociological dimension to the very concept, to the very phenomenon and to the very act of suicide. From a sociological point of view, Durkheim realized that the integration of the individual, whether high or whether low, would be eventually responsible for the instances of suicide. And Durkheim came out with 3 forms of suicide. Today I will be discussing only about the first form, and that is the egoistic suicide. Many of you know the term ego. It is very familiar to we people, because whenever we speak out with our friends, whenever we interact with people, we used to use this word. We say that it is your ego that forces you to do something. The word ego, if we divide that word into an English paraphrase, it refers to edging oneself out, which means you are actually edging yourself out from others, and you feel that your internalized self prompts you, compels you to behave in a particular manner. This is where the concept of ego comes into the picture, and this is the first classification of suicide according to Durkheim, and that is egoistic suicide. In egoistic suicide, Durkheim says that an individual commits suicide not because he has any personal problem, but that is because he is too much less integrated with the society, which means he has absolutely no relationship with the society, and there is no social mechanism to keep his life under control and under check. Naturally, the individual is poorly integrated with the society. I repeat that word, the individual is poorly integrated with the society, that he feels that he is neglected, he is hurted, he is insulted, and there is absolutely no point to live in the society. Naturally, the individual is self-centered, the individual only looks to himself, and he realizes that society has absolutely no control over his personal life, and now it is his turn to decide whether he should live or not. Here is where his ego works, and it is out of this least integration, this absolutely no integration state with the society, that the individual takes a decision that let me commit suicide. Why should I live? Because I don't have anyone in the society, I don't have any support mechanisms in the society, and it is better that I commit suicide. It is this less integration or perhaps no integration with the society that the individual feel aloof, the individual feel insulted, the individual feel alone, lonely and desperate, and that is an important compulsive factor that forces him, that compels him, that prompts him to commit suicide. So this is the first category of suicide. You can find that many loners, many people who live alone, many people who are single in their life, many people, maybe even spinsters, even widowed people, all of them have a natural tendency to commit this type of suicide, which belongs to the first category, and that is egoistic suicide. We will discuss other sessions in other types of suicide in the ongoing or in the coming sessions. Thank you.